认为夫妻之间最重要的应该是什么？
坦诚相待吧。
你对齐可欣做了什么？
用菜刀还有水果刀伤害我老婆。
Imagine growing up with everything handed to you on a silver platter. Xingping, the son of a powerful Chinese businessman, lived that life. From childhood, whatever he pointed at became his. He was extremely spoiled, never held a job, spending his days racing luxury cars, shopping sprees, and partying in nightclubs with his crew. He saw himself as superior to everyone else, despite achieving nothing on his own. Arrogant to the core, but one fateful night in a club, he met a girl who flipped his world upside down. After crossing paths with Qi Kexin, Ji's behavior started to shift. He began respecting people, transforming himself completely. He was in love, lavish gifts, dinners at extravagant restaurants. He even proposed marriage. Kexin dropped out of college to say yes, and they tied the knot. Soon, they were blessed with a baby girl. Life seemed perfect. Tragically, on March 24, 2013, it all shattered. Screams echoed from their apartment late at night. When the bedroom door swung open, Kexin lay on the floor, and Ji stood over her, knife in hand, stabbing her repeatedly like a man possessed. Her face was so disfigured, she was unrecognizable. Stabbed 60 times. During my research, I stumbled upon a real photo of the victim. It's beyond disturbing. I can't show it on YouTube, but to convey the horror, here's a sketch. It's truly horrifying to even glance at. What could have driven him to brutally murder the love of his life? Before we get into the case, if you're hooked on cases like this, hit that subscribe button. You're watching Red Files, and today's case is the horrifying murder of Qi Kexin. Xingping was born in 1988 in Zhejiang, a town in China. His parents were loaded, successful entrepreneurs who built a thriving steel business plus multiple real estate assets. But building an empire means sacrifices, and for them, it was good parenting. They showered him with money from day one, spoiling him rotten, but gave no time or values. They enrolled him in an elite, expensive school full of rich kids. There, Ji got endless attention, rolling up in luxury cars with his personal driver. His bags, pens, clothes, all top tier. Whatever he wanted, he got, except humility and good values. This upbringing made him arrogant. He'd never earned a dime, yet acted superior. Honestly, can we fully blame him? His dad was always on business trips, mom busy with parties or board games with friends. No one guided him right. In school, he'd fight constantly. One classmate recalled Ji beating him up and breaking his watch, leading to Ji's transfer to another school. At 17, out with friends at a sauna, he caused chaos, vandalism, and disturbance, landing him in arrest. A police officer said his parents didn't scold or discipline him. Instead, they showed up with lawyers and cash to bail him out. Shockingly, they even threw a party to celebrate his release. What kind of parenting is that? Your son commits a crime, and you reward him for dodging punishment. They encouraged his bad behavior. Ji frequented nightclubs, everyone knew him. Jobless, he'd blow about 1 lakh yuan monthly on online games. That's insane. Like all spoiled brats, he was a show-off. A luxury watch seller shared how Ji once bought an 8 lakh yuan watch just to win a bet with friends. That's $113,000. Not surprising, it wasn't his hard-earned money, so no respect for it. He owned luxury cars and properties, all gifted by his parents. As he grew older, they worried. He was so entitled, no job, wasting cash like water. Any parent would fret, but change was coming, thanks to a girl named Qi Kexin. In April 2011, Ji was out one night with his friends at a club, hammered as usual. In his drunken stupor, he stumbled into the wrong private karaoke room. Instead of his own, he barged into the one next door. There, he snatched the mic from a guy mid-song and started belting out tunes like he owned the place. Ji, being the rude jerk he was, it quickly escalated into an argument with the group in the room. Things were about to get physical when a calm, soothing voice cut through the chaos. "Kexin, She spoke to Xi diplomatically, sweetly diffusing the situation. Xi Jinping, the guy who never listened to anyone, who treated people like dirt and saw himself as above it all, was suddenly silent. He not only heard her, but actually complied. He was mesmerized by her beauty. In this awkward, almost movie-like introduction, Xi fell hard for Kexin. He apologized, got her number, and just like that, they started texting and calling over the next few days. Xi pursued her aggressively, using his money and charm to impress. He'd wait outside her campus in his luxury cars, shower her with lavish gifts, take her to expensive restaurants. Being unemployed, he had all day to give her undivided attention. Kexin, impressed by his background and status, fell for it too. They started dating, but Kexin's friends warned her, Xi's super short-tempered. His reputation's trash. He's nice to you now, but generally, he's not a good guy. Kexin, though, was in love. She told them he'd change for her. She could fix him. Sorry to say, but famous last words. She'd just come out of a relationship, feeling vulnerable, so she jumped in without thinking, ignoring all the red flags. Xi's parents, over the moon about Kexin entering their son's life. They thought she was lucky for him. His behavior was improving. He was getting nicer, more responsible, even considering a job. They couldn't believe their son, who didn't even have a high school diploma, landed such an educated girl. As for Kexin's parents, they were dead against it. They pointed out Xi had no diploma, lived off his parents' money, and spent his time partying. He's not good enough for our daughter. And honestly, they weren't wrong. Kexin's dad was a respected CFO at a company. Her mom a university professor. They were educated, esteemed. Kexin had been intelligent from childhood, excelling academically. Teachers said her future was bright. Beyond studies, she was a talented piano player and painter. In 2006, she got into Beijing University of Posts and Telecommunications and was interning at Bank of China. Asian parents, especially in China, have sky-high expectations, and Kexin exceeded them all. You can imagine how proud her folks were. So yeah, no wonder they hated Xi and opposed the relationship. But love's blind. Kexin wouldn't listen, convinced she could change him. And in some ways, it worked at first. Xi started a job, planned a future with her. But sadly, the happiness didn't last. Slowly, Kexin's boyfriend's insecurities surfaced. Xi was suspicious, super insecure. He even asked if she was a virgin, because he couldn't handle the thought of her being with anyone else before him. Her virginity didn't belong to him. It wasn't his to take. One day in March 2012, Xi spotted a message on Kexin's phone. A guy addressing her as wife. Sure, the messages showed she didn't reciprocate or say anything suspicious, but we know Xi, short-tempered to the extreme. That night, he came home drunk, exploding into a rage. He started interrogating her like a madman, demanding answers. Kexin tried to explain, calm him down, but he was too wasted and furious to listen. In his anger, he hauled off and punched her square in the face, so hard it dislocated her nose. The poor girl crumpled to the floor. In that instant, every warning from her friends and parents replayed in her head. Xi's not right for you. She knew he had a quick temper, but physical assault? She'd never dreamed he'd go there. She was disappointed, not just in him, but in herself too. The next day, she told him it was over. She wanted to break up. And honestly, that was the right call. But Xi, he turned into a blubbering mess, crying like a child, dropping to his knees, even slapping himself repeatedly in some pathetic display. Come on, first he assaults her, breaks her nose, and now this drama? He begged her not to leave, saying he was scared of losing her. All that nonsense. He kept at it, apologizing endlessly, sending expensive gifts. And eventually, Kexin forgave him on the promise he'd never do it again. A promise we all know he'd shatter. By giving him that second chance, Kexin made a choice she wouldn't live to regret. After that incident, their relationship spiraled into even more toxicity. Fights became constant. Xi physically assaulted her multiple times. What ate at him most? The fact that she wasn't a virgin, that she'd had an ex-boyfriend. He obsessed over it, accusing her of still talking to the guy, cheating behind his back. One day, things got so twisted that he demanded she prove her innocence and loyalty by cutting her own arms. You think that's crazy? What's shocking is, she actually did it, to deep cuts, leaving permanent scars on her hands. When Kexin's parents saw those scars, they flipped, scolding her, begging her to leave him. She'd never self-harmed before. She was always the happy, bubbly type. They knew Qi was destroying their daughter, but sadly, they felt helpless. I still can't wrap my head around why she stayed after all that abuse and toxicity. A few months after that horrifying cuts incident, Kexin discovered she was pregnant. Hearing the news, Qi lit up like a changed man. He was thrilled and immediately proposed marriage. For a brief spell, it seemed like things might turn around. So Kexin said yes, and not only that, she headed to her university, where she was in her 3rd year, and dropped out, despite her parents begging her not to. Her academic career, full of promise, came to a screeching halt. Even her professors tried to talk her out of it. She was such a bright student with a shining future ahead, but she wouldn't budge, choosing to marry Qi instead. They had an extravagant wedding. Not surprising, given how loaded Qi's parents were, and Kexin's family was well off too. By the way, Qi's folks were ecstatic about the marriage. They couldn't believe their son had snagged such a gem. And honestly, in this whole mess, Qi's parents weren't at fault. They were kind to Kexin, truly loved her like their own. Unfortunately, marriage didn't flip the script on Qi's behavior. Even with Kexin pregnant, the abuse kept rolling. One day, Qi was out at a bar with his friends, all knocking back drinks. Then one of his so-called friends drops this bomb. "Hey, I saw Kexin entering a hotel with another guy a few days ago." And like the gullible hothead he was, Qi swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. He even hired a private investigator to confirm it. Shockingly, the Pi reported back, "Yeah, in March, Kexin checked into a hotel with a man." That timing lined up exactly with when they conceived the baby, so Qi's mind went nuclear. He convinced himself she'd cheated, that the kid in her belly wasn't his. Raging, he stormed home without a word and unleashed hell, brutally assaulting her. She was about 6 months pregnant at the time. What he did was straight up diabolical. In my eyes, that alone deserves a life sentence. You know, when he finally told her why he'd beaten her, the truth came out. It wasn't Kexin at the hotel, it was her lookalike friend. The friend and the guy even confirmed it to Qi face to face. But nope, he still wouldn't buy it. In his twisted head, the baby wasn't his. End of story. Exhausted and desperate, Kexin offered to do a paternity test to prove it once and for all. She showed up at the hospital, pregnant and all, enduring the procedures. But Qi, he never bothered to appear. The test never happened. Qi still lived with Kexin, but in his mind, the betrayal was set in stone. This guy is the epitome of a pathetic rich baby, refusing the paternity test, obsessing over her virginity like some insecure creep, and yeah, a straight-up wife beater. He's the definition of a loser. After that, Qi basically checked out. He stopped taking care of her, vanishing for nights on end. Kexin was heartbroken, drowning in misery, but she powered through, forcing herself to stay positive so her emotions wouldn't affect the baby. Even in that nightmare, she handled everything alone, caring for the little one growing inside her. In January 2013, Kexin gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. For a short time after delivery, Qi seemed like he'd turned a corner, getting involved in his wife and daughter's life, acting like a family man. But Kexin, she knew better. This change was just another temporary act. It wouldn't stick. That's when she finally drew the line. She decided to divorce him. Her parents were all in, supporting her every step, even planning to set her up with a business after the split so she could rebuild independently. Qi's parents, though, they were against the divorce big time. They didn't want their granddaughter growing up in a broken home, so they begged Kexin and her folks, just wait at least 3 months. Give him one more shot to shape up. If he doesn't, then go ahead with the divorce. And Kexin agreed, unknowingly sealing her fate. April 24, 2013, the day that shook China with one of its most brutal, soul-crushing murders. That evening, Qi was out as usual, partying hard at a club with his so-called friends, drowning in drinks. The group was laughing, joking around, when one buddy tossed out a harmless jab. "You sure that daughter's actually yours? She doesn't even look like you." The whole crew burst into laughter. But Qi, he snapped. Furious, he screamed at them, started a fight, and stormed out. He stumbled home around 3 a.m., reeking of booze and boiling with rage. Bursting into the apartment, he kicked the bedroom door open with a crash, knife gripped tight in his hand, a big kitchen blade. He loomed over Kexin, who was probably asleep or tending to the baby. His eyes wild, he started screaming at her, "Tell me who the real father is." Kexin woke in terror, her heart pounding. The poor woman, still fragile from everything she'd endured, tried to explain herself in a shaky voice, pleading for him to calm down. But Qi's ears were deaf to reason, echoing only with his friends' mocking laughter. Possessed by fury, he lunged at her with the knife, stabbing wildly, her chest, her face, over and over. Kexin screamed for help, her cries piercing the night, begging for mercy. Qi's parents, who lived in the same apartment, heard the blood-curdling shrieks and rushed to the bedroom. What they saw would haunt them forever. Kexin sprawled on the floor in a growing pool of blood, their son hovering like a demon, stabbing relentlessly as if in a trance. The floor and walls were splattered crimson. They desperately tried to pull him off, shouting for him to stop, but he just kept going, lost in his madness. He stabbed her approximately 60 times. By the end, her face was utterly destroyed, disfigured beyond recognition. It's impossible to fathom how someone who once claimed to love her could unleash such savagery. Finally, Qi's parents called the police. Kexin was rushed to the hospital, but after that brutal attack, survival was out of the question. She died there, her body giving out. Reports say her parents collapsed outside the operating room, fainting from the shock. We can't even begin to imagine the hell they went through, seeing their daughter like that, knowing they'd warned her all along about Qi, but never dreaming he'd sink this low. When the cops arrived and arrested Qi, they found him sitting blankly beside Kexin's body, surrounded by 3 or 4 blood-soaked knives scattered on the floor. November 4th, 2013, Qi's murder trial kicked off, and let me tell you, this case exploded in the media. The whole country was glued to it, shocked to their core. Crowds swarmed outside the courthouse, chanting for justice for Kexin. Her cousin stood there, holding up photos of her while her family demanded the death penalty for Qi. The outrage was palpable. Inside the courtroom, Qi pulled every trick to save his skin. He flipped his statements like a pancake. At first, right after arrest, he confessed flat out, but then he switched gears, claiming it was self-defense. He even tried to play the mentally unstable card, hoping for some leniency. But he bombed miserably. The evidence was ironclad. In the end, on April 18, 2014, the hammer dropped, death sentence. And in my opinion, he deserved nothing less. You know, even behind bars, his violent streak didn't quit. One time, he hurled boiling milk at a fellow inmate just because the guy cranked up the TV volume. He assaulted multiple prisoners in there, proving once and for all, he couldn't be reformed. No mercy for a monster like that. Finally, on November 24, 2020, Xingping was executed. Thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts or case suggestions, let me know. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.